For millennia, there has been a galaxy in a never-ending cycle of war between two starkly different religions. The two religions command powers only some people could ever dream of. The abilities to move objects with the mind, generate electrical storms, perceive events yet to happen, heal wounds, and many other abilities yet unknown to either religion. This power source is the foundation of both opposing orders. This is the Force, and the Orders are the tyrannical Jedi Order that fights for their version of the greater good. Their opposition is the libertarian Sith Order that fights for personal strength and freedom to pursue life's pleasures and live life to the fullest. Also, many just try to assume ultimate power, but they are only roughly half of the Sith Order. As a Sith Lord, I am a supporter of Sith dogma, but I hate how the Order has degenerated to a bunch of power-hungry individuals that don't resemble the original beliefs of the Order, more turning into just avatars of the dark side without even a second thought. That's why I would purge and reshape the Sith Order in my image of Darth Kilhoun and my worldview. The Sith Code has guided the Sith Order for an unspecified amount of time after the 100-year darkness, but before the Great Hyperspace War. So it's about roughly 7,000 years old, give or take a few centuries. It is a code of personal conviction to encourage people to be independent and free-willed, while still following a societal structure. The Sith Code reads as follows: Peace is a lie, there is only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my bonds are broken. The Force shall free me. The Sith Code acknowledges that conflict is inevitable, peace being only a distant dream in the minds of most. It tells you instead of pursuing peace, it is better to follow your passions. It tells you that passions give you strength, and that is good to be strong. Through that strength, it is naturally given you power. That power will give you victory in life, whether it is winning a war, amassing personal wealth, or political victories. Then it goes on to finish in saying the Force is meant to free oneself, that it doesn't even matter if you can feel the Force or not, but that you should seek personal freedom. This would be my Order's interpretation of the Sith Code, and would be taught that way to my Sith and civilian populations. In my interpretation of the Sith Code and my Sith Empire, it would push unity, brotherhood, personal and emotional freedom, militarism, nationalism, and a gray stance on the Force. The Sith Empire would be one free of power struggle by ambitious Sith Lords and the constant mini coups d'etats to gain their master's position, where strength and prowess is what dominates everything in their lives. I would simply remove this and replace it with a system like aristocracy, where they are responsible for more than themselves, to give weight to their actions and make them more socially responsible to the Sith Empire. This aristocratic system would follow a system similar to the German Junkers, or essentially everyone who had von after their first name and before their last name. These men range from just simple landowners, like my family was back in the Königsreich of Bavaria, to kings. This system differentiated the average German and Junker with the simple title von added, which kept administration easy within the German Reich. They oftentimes ruled their lands justly and fairly like fathers for thousands of people. This is why I would create Sith aristocratic families. This practice would destroy the Sith practice of taking on a new name when you are given the title of Lord or Darth. For example, Darth Vader's birth name wasn't Darth Vader, of course. It was Anakin Skywalker. In my Sith Empire, he would be named Anakin von Skywalker, which means Anakin of the House of Skywalker. These Sith houses would be given governance over kingdoms, duchies, principalities, and counties, all across my empire, with plans being divided into these separate organized feudal provinces, to ensure one Sith family doesn't rule a whole planet. These Sith houses would be spawned by Sith who aren't descendants of Sith families, like a random chance that a Force sensitive is descendant from non-Force sensitive parents. Otherwise, most Sith would be born into these houses, as each Sith house would marry into each other and be expected to have large amounts of children to ensure a large population of Force sensitives being born, so we could easily outnumber both the Jedi and old Sith Order with our new Sith Order. Statistically speaking, of most of the examples in the Star Wars universe, if an individual is born to at least one Force user, you will be Force sensitive. The only example to counter that claim I can think of is Theron Shan from the Star Wars The Old Republic MMORPG, where his mother was a Jedi, but he wasn't Force sensitive. It would be a similar system to the European feudal system where Sith would have large numbers of children, then marry them off to other nobles to get political alliances between the families, or just for simple relationships between said families. I would keep the system of Sith Lords and Darths, but more as just religious ranks, to show their status in the Sith Order itself, which would act as the state religion, but would hold 3 other titles along with their religious title. They would hold both a military officer rank, depending on how much military experience they hold, and their noble title like Count, Duke, Prince, or King on top of their religious title. Then the one at the top of all of the Sith is the Sith Emperor, which is Darth von Kilhoon, founder of the House of Kilhoon, King of Novus Initium, and Emperor of the Sith Empire, Commander-in-Chief of the Imperial Armed Forces and religious head of the Sith Order. Yeah, the Emperor is like the Queen of England, where he is head of the state religion, which it can also be seen as the Pope, but yet kind of not like the Pope. It's going to be weird like that. But I'd actually relate it more accurately to the German Kaiser, as the German Kaiser was the head of the Prussian Lutheran Church. That would be the role of my Emperor. There would also be a form of the divine right of kings, but I will instead call it the mandate of the Force, where the dogma of the Sith Order would state that the Force has chosen the House of Kilhoon to rule the Sith Empire to deter any political foes or other Sith families trying to take the throne, like what frequently happened in Imperial China. The average Sith of no matter what era has always had to watch their back, as oftentimes murdering their master or competition was the only way to get ahead anywhere in Sith society. This social practice has oftentimes divided Sith society and made everything they do come into question, which is why, no matter what status, murder will be punishable by the death sentence, and the Sith Order would become a meritocracy with feudal elements sprinkled in. The whole matter of master and apprentice would be done away with. Instead, a master and apprentice would be through the Sith families would teach the younger generations in the Force. So essentially, the father teaches the son, uncle teaches the nephew, etc., etc. This would encourage Sith family values to encroach in Sith families. My people would also be taught to view each other as equals in persons and brothers, like a common banner of the Sith Empire, inspiring imperial unity and strength of bond over just personal strength. No longer will the Sith be backstabbing treacherous slimes, they will be honorable warriors of renown, the ones to be held up as great guardians of civilization, like a knight of medieval Europe or a samurai of feudal Japan. My Sith would be taught honor above all in a code of chivalry or Bushido along with it. The Sith aren't just an organization with a name, they are individuals, and each individual Sith needs training to master their abilities in the mystical arts of the Force, like how a sword needs a whetstone, or like a sharp mind needs a book. Which is why I am going to explain the average life of a Sith Lord in the Sith Empire of Darth Kilhoun. A woman wailing, a man grasping his wife's hand in a futile attempt to support her in the struggle before. Time passes, and with a final push, the sound of an infant crying. A new life has been born into the Empire. Lying in wait, a cloaked figure waited for the baby's cries to cease. Cloaked figure let the new parents celebrate their offspring's births before inspecting the child himself. He senses the Force permeates strongly within the child's body. He is found to be Force sensitive, the first step in becoming a member of the Sith Order. 5 years pass as the child's mind develops with their either civilian or Sith parents before they begin their initial training in the very basic arts of the Force. If the child is born to a Sith, that Sith will teach their child to feel the Force within the confines of their own palaces. In the off chance that a child isn't born to a Force-sensitive parent, then at the age of 5, that child would be taken as a ward of the local Sith family that rules the region, where they would be taught side by side with other Force-sensitive children. This training would be like going to a Christian boarding school in our world. They would be given an education alongside Sith religious dogma, basic sword skill classes, military science courses, marksmanship, and Force training classes. These basic classes would be to prepare the young Force sensitives for any further training at the academy. At age 13, the future Sith ends their initial training, already skilled Force users, mastering the basics in their time, and found what type of Sith they desired to become. They are shipped off to the throne world of Nova Sanitium, where they would enter a castle made of volcanic glass spires and houses surrounded by fields of grasslands, forests, and high granite peaks. The students would be divided into separate houses based upon what type of Sith they desire to become, or what type of Sith they should become. The first house, the Warrior House. These are the masters of the battlefield, experts in lightsaber combat, and skilled in combative Force powers, along with leading troops. They are the vanguard against the age-old struggle between the Sith and Jedi orders. They will be trained to become the perfect Sith soldiers, alongside their brethren. The second house is the house of the Sith Assassins. The Assassins are taught the ways of asymmetrical warfare against the age-old enemy of the Jedi Order. They train to hone their lightsaber skills, combative and non-combative Force powers, to operate from the shadows and destroy their enemies in very creative ways. Then lastly, the house of the Sith Sorcerers. These students are masters of the Force in both the most common and arcane abilities. Most of these Siths were never the most physically capable or skilled swordsmen. Instead, they have always been best when it comes to knowledge in the Force, always able to match and exceed their foes in the said abilities of the Force. Despite all the differing houses, all are treated equal, and their students mingle between houses, as the houses are more of just college dorms than anything. All students will spend 5 years in the academy until graduation at age 15, where they would be taught not just the ways of the Force and combat, but how to lead soldiers, military strategy, military and Sith philosophy, from both the teachings of Darth Revan, the Wise, and Darth Kilhoun, the Just. This will be coupled with marksmanship, Sith history, and lessons on why just extensively using the dark side restricts your powers, mathematics, the science, art, Sith camaraderie, and how the Force is supposed to be an undivided foe, using both the light and dark side. A mandatory study for all in the Sith Empire, especially the Sith, is the hypocrisy of Jedi belief, and how they, in a democratic republic, chose to enact a genocide that killed billions of Sith in the Great Hyperspace War after the Sith Empire had already surrendered to the Republic. These generations of Sith would balance the use of light and dark side abilities, using both sides' strengths with none of the weaknesses. Every student would hone their body and mind to command oneself and the Force. They would be taught to respect one another as comrades. The act of murder and rape wouldn't be tolerated by Sith teachings. Both these acts would be punishable by beheading. These acolytes would join clubs and play sports to learn teamwork and camaraderie. Upon graduation, they discard their training sabers and forge their own lightsabers, mostly from the infamous Sith red synthetic crystal, which they have to forge themselves, or they have to find a purple Adegan crystal. And then they are given two paths they can take at the end of their time as an acolyte. The first path is the typical default. They are mandated to serve 4 years military service as lieutenants in the Imperial Army or ensigns in the Imperial Navy or Marine Corps to give them military experience. This period of their lives are called the time of the Sith Moderers, where they would be given universal Sith acolyte armor like the ones worn by the Sith warriors in the Star Wars The Old Republic MMORPG cinematic trailers, especially the ones in the Deceived trailer. This period is to teach them to not look down on the average non-Force user of the galaxy and fight the Empire's battles against any foreign power that it so happens to be fighting at the time. In that time, they would rise in the military ranks as they become veterans of the battlefield. The second path is the rare one, only given to a few thousand that prove their skills in stealth, loyalty, mental, and physical strength, along with intelligence. Get chosen for a special 4-year mission in Imperial Military Intelligence as a lieutenant. They are paired in teams of 2 with an entourage of non-Force users to infiltrate the foreign powers of the galaxy and report military and political intelligence back to the Empire, so we always know what the galaxy and more importantly the Republic is doing while we hide in the shadows. Their mission is to search and locate human and humanoid Force sensitives to be sent back to the Sith Empire for training as future Sith, preferably if they are children, orphans, and ones who hate the Republic. This is more of a secondary mission task, but nonetheless it is very important. All these Sith are given purple crystal lightsabers, so in case they are spotted or caught, they can pass as Jedi. Also, given their gray stance on the Force, all they would have to do is hide the darkness and only let the Jedi sense their light. The 2 Sith would stay on strategic and high-populated worlds to conduct their operations successfully. This would keep the Empire one step ahead of the Jedi and the Republic dogs. These men are referred to as the Sith Shadows. Once this period of 4 years has ended, the Sith who survived, preferably all of them, they will get the Sith religious rank of Lord and given one of 2 paths based on circumstance. Return to their Sith families and help administer their family lands and managing the administration of their province that they have to govern, For the Siths who weren't born into Sith families, then become the founders of their own Sith house while being given a province on a recently conquered planet or colony to govern under the name of the Emperor as a duke or count. The other option would be to remain in active military service or as a Sith shadow. The requirement for extended military service is to be married, though, as a Sith is as a family is the basis of the Sith Empire, as each governing Sith, including the Emperor, has to act as a father to their subjects. So they should become fathers and mothers themselves. Oh, and if they do go off for additional military service, then they will have a military officer act as a regent in their place of the province they are given. If the Sith is already married by that time they are done with their 4 years of service, then this is not applicable. But if they aren't, then the head of the Sith house or their parents would have to arrange a marriage with another Sith family, but this is only if they cannot find a spouse within a year out of military service. So they have time for passion to take root before they are forced into an arranged marriage. During this time, as a noble, they would still hold their previous military rank and be put on reserve duty, ready to be called into action at any time to defend the Empire. As the years pass, the Sith Lord would have many offspring and further master the ways of the Force, while governing their province with wise counsel and just rule. Their children will follow in the same course along with the other Force sensitives from their province that they had raised and sent to the Academy, making a never-ending cycle of multiplying the Sith Order to outpopulate the Jedi Order and the old Sith Order, to in time periods of generations come to become the undisputed masters of the Force. In this time, if they inherit the position as head of the Sith house, they will be given the religious title of Darth. If not, they will remain as a Lord. The only other way they can become a Darth is if the Emperor appoints them to the Dark Council, where it will essentially be like being a part of their imperial court. Typically, the eldest child of the head of the family will inherit the position of their father or mother, but in special circumstances, the head of the house can appoint another one of their children as the heir. If they lose all their children, then it goes to anyone next of kin, the first brother or sister behind them in the family. This is meant so no Sith family can truly die off unless you kill every single one down to the 11th cousin. So virtually impossible. In the fluke chance, though, then the province they governed will go to a prince or princess of the House of Kilhoun, aka the Imperial Royal Family, to ensure stability within the Sith Empire is always maintained. Finally, at the end of the life of the Sith, whether that's through natural or artificial means, they will have state funerals in their house's governing province, in a family tomb where their bodies would be laid to rest with their favorite robes, military uniform, and lightsaber within. The tombs wouldn't be a doom and gloom as most Sith tombs of old. Instead, it will just be a beautiful mausoleum guarded by members of the Imperial Guard, and civilians could come and mourn the Sith of old. For the Imperial Royal Family, the House of Kilhoun would possess massive tombs themselves, carved out of the literal mountain range that flanks over the city Novus on the River Viken of the throne world of Novus Anitium, where the mountains themselves would be carved out to become tombs of each emperor or empress, with the peaks of the mountain carved by droids in the image of the deceased emperor, empress, and their spouse. Upon a Sith death, their firstborn or appointed child will inherit the throne, leaving behind a stable government that thinks in terms of generations for the well-being of the people of the Empire. I will get into the government in a later video, along with the society, culture, ethnic policy, and any other videos I view as necessary. Before wrapping up though, I am going to cover the Imperial Guard. These troops are like the United States National Guard mixed with the Royal Guards of many other nations, where they are a reserve military force that are organized based upon province or state, being devoted to both the state they operate from and the empire itself. They are led by the local head of the Sith family that governs the province. They have both practical military units and royal guards that guard the tombs and Sith palaces. Of course, only the most disciplined and loyal soldiers will actually guard the palace. The Imperial Guard would also be led by Sith princes coming back from their 4 years mandatory active military service. And that wraps it up for today, guys. Thank you all for watching this episode in the Darth Kilhoun Sith Empire series. If you want to keep up with this series and my channel in general, please hit that like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to keep up with your favorite Sith Lord. Have a good day, guys.